Seven, six, five, four, three, two, one.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Welcome to Innovating a Game Changer podcast. This is podcast number 15. Today we're going to be talking about esports, and specifically we'll be talking about Overwatch as a game. Esports is a massive industry that's continuing to grow and getting bigger than general sports in the economy. You're listening to Nevada Smith, the innovator, and this is Innovating a Game Changer podcast. All right, we're live. Welcome to Coda to the studio.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so we're going to be talking a little bit about the esports and how it's growing and becoming part of the mainstream, especially in the millennial environment. I saw some statistics earlier today that I think it was 13 to 35-year-olds really taking this on and getting really involved about it. And of course, I'm outside of that demographic, so I'd like to learn a lot more about it. So why don't you give me a little bit of an overview about what esports is, and we can talk and you can teach me a few things.
All right, esports as a whole are just video games that have become competitive sports. It's not any different from anything you would normally watch, from football to soccer, but it's just basically competitive gaming.
Yeah, so if we go back to 2012, apparently there was 58 million esports attendance from frequent viewers and enthusiasts, and in 2014 it was at 89 million. That's just from esports perspective itself. And you had 3.7 billion minutes of time spent, 3.7 billion hours of time spent in 2014. So it's continuing to grow. 2017 projections for esports. I'm going to have a quick look at those while we talk about a little bit about Overwatch. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Overwatch while I find those stats?
Overwatch has been out for a year now, just entering the anniversary event, and basically, Overwatch is the new competitive game that I'm getting into, and they're kind of working out all the kinks and trying to smooth out the competitive experience as a whole.
So, is it in alpha or beta release right now, or is it something that's new to the market? How many players are there? Do you know?
There were, in the last 3 months, Jeff Goodman, one of the lead directors for Overwatch, said that there were over 50 million copies sold in a year.
So you've actually got to download this particular game, or what happens?
It is a downloadable game. It's just basically a competitive experience as a whole. A lot of people shy away from competitive gaming, though, especially in the Overwatch community, and they want to be more casual, but there is a very big scene for competitive gamers. If you go on Twitch, you can see a lot of pro players who are streaming at the moment.
Okay, so from a Twitch perspective, what does the Twitch platform do?
Twitch allows mostly either pro players or just enthusiasts of games as a whole to get a platform to watch any game, for that matter. We have everything from Flash games on Twitch and to competitive esports going on.
Yeah, and it says here that Overwatch continues to grow at a mind-boggling pace. It's now at 30 million registered players, was the latest statistic. But that was back in April, so it's continued to grow since then. So when was the release date for this? I think it was October last year. Is that right?
I believe so.
Okay. And so it said in January it was 25 million players. So they look like they're adding every 3 months another 5 million. So what's the price of this particular product? It's $40?
It's $40 most of the time, but there are sales that happen and it goes down to $30, which is quite expensive for most esports today. League of Legends, which is another popular esport, is free to play, and Counter-Strike you can normally get on like bargain websites for around $7 to $10.
Right, and there's another one that was out there. It's called Hearthstone. Is that correct? By Blizzard.
Yeah, Hearthstone, also another Blizzard game, is a online competitive trading card game type of thing. I have a few friends who play it. There is a pro scene for it, but Overwatch is kind of taking over, it seems.
Okay, and they talked about is it Hearthstone or
Hearthstone?
Yeah, it had 50 million registered players 2 years after its release. So the growth of this particular game at 30 million as of April is significantly higher from a growth perspective. So tell us a little bit about what's the strategy and what type. Is there different settings that you can do, different players you can play? Tell us a little bit about the game in detail.
It is a class-based first-person shooter. It sets itself apart and is more of a Team Fortress 2 inspired game, which originally Team Fortress was a mod for Quake, which is also a class-based shooter. In Team Fortress 2, however, you play as a specific class. For example, a medic for healing, a heavy for being a heavy tank. There are only 9 classes, but in Overwatch now there are 24 playable classes, which are considered heroes, which have a kit that do different things based on your hero.
Okay, so what's the player that you typically play, and what type of character are they?
I am a DPS and tank main most of the time, which basically means I'm doing the damage and either absorbing the damage. The heroes I normally play are Genji and D.Va. D.Va a lot more this season just because he's a lot more powerful in the meta today, which there's a constantly changing meta in Overwatch that just every update changes how people like to play the game, some heroes become more powerful than others while some are left in the dust.
Right, and I grabbed the esports revenue growth. So in 2017, it's projected to be continue to grow at 41.3% year over year growth. That is a target of $696 million for the year. They're thinking it's going to be they're still registering it in millions. I'm guessing it's $1,488 million in revenue by 2020 is the revenue projected growth. So there's still a long way to go. So Peter Warman, the CEO of Newzoo, commented that esports is not only growing exponentially as a new independent business and industry, it's also accelerating the convergence of various established industries. For brands, media, entertainment, esports provides a chance to capitalize on favorite pastime of digital natives and the millennials, playing games and watching game content. With the arrival of live stream and events, gaming has entered the realm of broadcast and media that can now apply to advertising business model and marketing, a market that's previously out of the reach to them. So do you have any opinions on how you're getting marketed to? Is there product endorsements in there? Are you following highly visible players? What do you think the marketing opportunities may be in that particular?
Particular to me, I think the biggest opportunities are in specific pro players who they've become these like internet personalities almost, but they've just grown at such a fast pace compared to those of like YouTubers, just because they are constantly streaming. You can constantly tune in. They have these time slots that are normally 4 to 5, even up to 8, 9, 10 hours a day, where they're just playing games, interacting with their audience.
Right. So the other opportunity that they see for revenue growth is betting, and right now it says betting for esports has been around for many years, but it doesn't require the involvement of any esports companies to organize. So I'm guessing that the betting industry is going to take advantage of this. I'm not sure, you being young and all, that you'd know anything about betting, but have you heard anything about people betting on these games?
Back in when I played CSGO, many people would use gambling sites, which got shut down by Valve originally because of underage people playing on the sites, where they were getting 10 to 12-year-olds playing on gambling websites and just buying large amounts of items and gambling them on games, which became even more terrible just because they weren't gambling directly on esports as a whole, but they were playing almost roulette type sites,
Right.
which became a huge problem because hundreds of thousands of dollars were getting wasted by families just because their 10-year-old found a gambling website.
Gambling website. All right, so I think 2017 revenue streams are going to continue to evolve here. Do you see any? Is there any sponsorships that you're aware of right now for these big players that you talked about?
Normally, what I see are mostly PC, like gaming computer companies. Sometimes there are larger broadcasting networks that will sponsor them directly. E-League, for one, is a part of Turner now, and they are trying to take esports and take it offline and put it on mainstream television.
Right. Yeah, because it says here Turner and obviously the E-League and themselves, and TBS is involved as far as esports revenue growth. So it is definitely becoming mainstream there. Counter-Strike, is that a game that you've been involved with?
Counter-Strike, I put around 1,000 hours into as a whole, and the game is another competitive first-person shooter, but more based around, I would say, more based around team play and being individually good, rather than in Overwatch's cases is more based around more basic understanding of the game, I would say, at a lower level.
So is one a team? Are you always playing in teams in Counter-Strike? You're not in Overwatch, or
you always are playing in teams, but in Counter-Strike, the team play is at a high level is a lot more taxing, I would say, because you have to constantly know where the rest of your team is. Otherwise, you're just going to lose the game. At low levels of Counter-Strike play, there isn't a whole lot of strategy, in that it just turns into a game of people just running around trying to mow people down. But in Overwatch, team play at a lower level is a lot more taxing. Individual skill in Overwatch is more important than team play, while in Counter-Strike, you get to the point where you're just very, very good at everything you do in Counter-Strike, which is very position-based, very aim-based. If you have incredible aim, you can go into the pro scene, understand that, and you will get crushed. But what sets these people apart is being able to play within these teams. Again, Counter-Strike is a 5v5 first-person shooter, which makes it a lot easier than the 6 versus 6 on Overwatch, just because you have that one less person that you have to deal with and keep track of.
So you said that just because there's one less person on each side, does that make the game a little bit easier?
I would say it allows, I believe if Counter-Strike was a 6 versus 6, it would make the game a lot harder. But the game itself is so based around team play, it would pretty much crush anyone who has already been in the scene for a while and developed these patterns.
So talk to me a little bit about your experience about getting better at the game and how competitive it is as you start to go up the levels. Does the competitive nature, or they grouping you guys together at your own level? What happens there?
Okay, for Counter-Strike, there is a competitive ranking system. There's a couple competitive ranking systems. There is one made by Valve, the company that makes Counter-Strike, and then there are a couple third-party organizations that have a competitive mode. ESEA is one of them, which puts you on a rank from D- up to A+, and based on an ELO system, which is the same system that they use in all competitive games as well as chess. You can look that up pretty easily and understand how it works. Basically, every win you get number of points based on how well you did, and every loss you get a number of points taken away from you, which moves you up and down the ladder.
So when you do get moved up the ladder, do you find the people you're competing against is your whole team go with you, or do you make a new team every game? How does that work?
If you're playing Overwatch, the main thing people do is either solo queue or dual queue, which is basically you either play by yourself and you get put randomly into a team, or you play with another person and you just keep that person that you know is good so that you can try to rank up in the ranks.
So you couldn't build a whole team?
You could build a whole team. It's just not as popular because most of the time what happens is there's a smurfing problem in all of these competitive games, which basically means it's a higher level player playing at a lower level than they're actually ranked. And what happens is you'll get these queues where people go into a 6-man and they'll be put up against a team that has 2 or 3 Smurfs on it that are playing in a lot lower elo than they should actually be playing in.
And that's because the team that they've matched themselves up with has dropped them down into those ranks?
Some people just buy new accounts and try to just do bad in their placement matches so that they don't get in a higher rank, and then they'll play from there. Overwatch was better about that last season because they had something that basically would rapidly adjust your rank based if you kept getting wins. But in season 5, they got rid of that because they scaled it down a lot because people were going on huge losing streaks and losing too much elo, and it would make people turn away from the game.
Right, because then the lower graded individuals were getting wiped out really quickly, so that was turning them away from the game.
It was more that Overwatch has a problem with people throwing, and people who don't want to buy new accounts, what they'll do is they'll just throw the game, as in they will just start jumping off the map. They'll try to just make their team do as bad as possible. There's one character in Overwatch, Mei, which has the ability to build a wall that basically I've seen games where people have been trapped in their spawn by their own teammates.
What do you mean trapped in their own spawn?
In Overwatch, each map has an encasement that you begin in, and in that encasement you can put a wall. As Mei, you can put a wall up in there and keep your team in there for 10 seconds too long, and that'll basically keep anyone from getting to the point if you're playing capture point, or if you are playing something like payload, which there are 2 different game modes, but they have similar premises.
Okay, so at the end of the day, are you normally matched up with one individual that you take with you, or do you what sort of method do you utilize to play?
If you are solo queuing, you get more elo because they know that it's more based around, hey, you're getting random people, so you might want to just it's gonna be harder for you. So the game knows that, so they're gonna reward you more. They're gonna penalize you less. But if you're playing in a dual queue, which helps a lot, just because if you know someone who is good at the game, also it's a lot easier to rank up, and you can go on huge win streaks.
So if I was a new product developer and I wanted to get some sort of exposure to this particular market, what do you think would be a good way for the developer of a specific product to start to engage with the wide area of esports?
If it's a smaller product developer, I would recommend going to individual pro players, up and coming streamers, people who are playing at a fairly high level or are internet personalities already. I always say that there's a couple ways you can become popular as a streamer. One is to play at a pro level, and the other is to be an internet personality and make everyone enjoy it just because of your personality. For a product producer, going directly to the leagues, Overwatch for one is getting put. The Overwatch World Cup is going to be held in the Twitch esports arena this year, and Twitch is a big supporter of a lot of streamers. That's like the number one streaming site for esports.
So is Twitch? Is it pay per view at this point? Are they looking at are there high end games that you've got to watch? You can only watch streaming if you pay a fee.
Twitch has a subscription service, which basically streamers have the ability to. Most streamers, what they'll do is they'll have streams that are free to watch, and then they'll have streams that are subscriber only. And once a streamer is partnered with Twitch, they can set up a fee so that they get paid. Most of the time it's $5 a month to get those extra streams, and that half of that goes to the streamer themselves.
Okay, so that's how those streamers make their money. Have you seen the streamers come and go from a Twitch perspective? Oh, I'll pause that. Have you seen streamers come into notoriety and then disappear very quickly, or is it somebody that gradually gets that following?
It's heavily dependent on what they already have done. Say if it's a pro player, I've seen people come into notoriety incredibly quickly, keep it there. And then I've seen some recent problems with pro players getting banned for toxicity and just being overly aggressive during the game and unsportsmanlike. And there were some recent cases where pro players were banned from the game for the current season, which took them out of the streaming field almost entirely because their main game is now gone.
Right. So I'm just taking a look at the top live broadcasting channels right now. Obviously, E3 is being streamed live right now. It's got 91,000 viewers. There's some others there with 16,000 odd viewers as well. But it looks like there's a lot of different channels that you can go to, not only from a game perspective, but platforms as well.
There aren't a whole lot of platforms as a whole for streaming. For streaming games specifically, Twitch is the number one and doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon.
Right, but I'm in the platforms from like the PS4 or the Xbox One.
PC is obviously going to be the most popular for streaming, just because it's a lot easier to stream directly from a PC.
So if you wanted to stream an Xbox, what additional equipment would you need?
I believe there are some things that allow you to stream directly to Twitch that are built into the Xbox, but if you want all these overlays and special features that are included already, I believe you actually have to put the source through a computer that's separate.
Right, and then you got to deal with the delays of the video stream and matching everything up. Yeah. So it could become quite complex. And then of course you get delays in the video streams themselves as well. So if somebody wanted to get started in streaming, what would you recommend from a platform perspective? Let's say it's a PC game that they want to do. What sort of PC componentry would you suggest?
Most of the time, any PC can normally stream, but it's heavily dependent on the game you're playing. For first-person shooters, for example, you need it's almost a requirement to have 60 FPS in your stream. Some people don't really care. If you're playing at a higher level, then a lot of people are going to want to be able to keep track of what you're doing. For things like Hearthstone, 30 FPS is more than enough, and you don't really need a beastly computer to handle any of that running in the background. I know a lot of streamers, pro players in the Counter-Strike scene. Hiko, for one, uses 3 PCs to stream. It's not a requirement, but what he does is he has a computer dedicated to the game, a computer dedicated to streaming, and another dedicated to chat and keeping track of everything and handling his sound.
Yeah, so that's the other thing that makes esports different from existing sports, which is really the social media, the engagement componentry of it, which I don't think sports today has really taken advantage of yet. So can you talk to me a little bit about the interactivity portions of that?
Basically, you're able to chat directly with this streamer through the chat system that Twitch provides, which just adds that extra level of engagement. A lot of streamers, what they'll do is they'll have their streams only on a 30-second delay, so they'll be seeing those messages, and then they'll be able to respond to them very quickly.
Right, kind of like putting this particular stream on a 30-second delay so we could stop the dogs from barking in the background because we're not actually in the standard studio today.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think, is there anything else that you think, if you were to do a projection on the future of where this is going, besides the stats around the demographics and the money that's coming in for this, and this is definitely a platform that you should be starting to get involved with from no matter what product you're developing. It's a market that's continuing to grow. It's going to be a social marketing market as well. So is there anything that you see in the future that maybe we don't see at this point?
As a whole, I think esports is just going to grow, but that's kind of supported by the statistics that are already there. As a whole, the esports industry is, in my opinion, going to get more sponsorships, the ability to just become almost as if they were just sports. Having TV channels is the first step, and that ability is just a huge step in the right direction.
All right, well, I appreciate you coming in and talking about esports, and this has been this has been Innovating a Game Changer podcast, and we've been talking about esports. Look forward to bringing you the next episode. Thanks again.
Thank you.